Hey everyone, welcome back to BlockRoots. As always, I am Josh. Welcome to the channel. Always glad to have you. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. All you have to do is go down to the bottom, the red button, and click subscribe. Leave a comment, because every time you leave a comment, you're going to be in a drawing for free Bitcoin every week. That's all you have to do is leave a comment, and it would be great if you left your Bitcoin address. You don't have to. I'll try to contact you. If I don't hear from you, I'm just going to move on to the next person. So easier to leave that Bitcoin address. And welcome to the channel. If you're new here, as always, nothing is financial advice, so do your own research as well. It's very important to do that because the crypto markets are volatile. And speaking of volatility, let's go ahead and look at the chart here at the one-day Coinbase Bitcoin charts. I can go ahead and turn this off to show you what we're looking at. But what we're looking at, as you see, the price just recently dropped around 12% in the past 3 days, is we're looking at the Bollinger Bands. And as you notice, I did talk about this on both Telegram and on Twitter, that we saw a pinching here. We'll see that these bands come close together. They pinch together. That shows that there's some incoming volatility ahead, typically. And as you've noticed at the last big move, there was some pinching there. Prior to that, too, the big moves, there was somewhat, again, it was closer here than, again, it expanded. The Bollinger Bands did expand. But when you see them come together this close, you know, especially on a higher time frame chart, that there's some volatility ahead. And the red line here is a 20 MA. It's the middle of the Bollinger Band. When the price is below that and the price action happens or the volatility happens, it tends to break down. If the price is above that, many times it tends to break up whenever there's expansion of these Bollinger Bands. So that was something that we talked about. Now we do have the volatile move, which is down. We also talked about, too, with the historical volatility, we notice that whenever volatility decreases right over time, so you notice that there's a peak here and then decreases over time. I'll go ahead and just kind of draw that out. Okay, and then, of course, volatility rises, and then you're going to notice the price action is confluent with it. And so the same thing happened again before the last drop. Volatility was way down, I think around the 15 level. And of course, there's a spike in volatility as the price moved down as well. We started to see that as well too here. And so we started to notice before the volatility moved up, we saw that volatility was, of course, moving down, and we had another spike as well. Now, how far are we going to drop? We can talk about that. And basically all I have to say is this, is that after this 6% move or so, 6.62%, but of course on the daily it was a 9%, and over the past 3 days it was a plus 12% move. And so that's quite the move there. Why was this bearish, and why did I specifically think that it was bearish? Let's go ahead and talk about that. Really, it came down to a few videos ago when it comes to the price action. If we zoom in here and we notice on the day chart, let me get rid of this volatility here. We had a clear range forming, okay, with Bitcoin. And so here's the range. Well, really the range low is down here. Range top is, as far as the closing, right, was up here, and price was everywhere in between. Now, what happened was that price went from the range low, the lowest that it had been, to the range high. And the issue is that previous resistance was right here in this area. Okay, so see, notice price couldn't close above it, went down here, broke above it, and then all of a sudden what happened, right? Price broke back down after it hit as high as 8,800. A lot of people stepped in and bought. You know, some longs got liquidated. Price went back down around 6%, and ever since then, price could not close above it. So what's the importance of a close is that if price doesn't close by the end of the day, basically just means at the end of the day that there are more sellers than buyers. If you see these wicks going through this resistance area, that really doesn't mean much, okay? We really want to close above that level. That shows us that there are buyers that are interested above that level and that price will likely move up. But we didn't have it, and so from there on, of course, price moved back down. We had kind of another quick spike. And then from there, the same thing happened. Even though, you know, if you look at the order flow charts, we've been talking about that a little bit more. Cantor and Clark will get into that, specifically gets into that quite a bit with BlockRoots, and I can talk about BlockRoots here in a moment. We did seem to have a lot of small retail buyers buying, market buying in these areas, and it just, the price didn't move. And so whenever that happens, when you have a ton of buyers buying at a resistance or at a local high and price doesn't move, it means that there's a larger player that's hidden that's absorbing that. And so if you know that, if you can see that in the order book, if you can see that in the order flow, if you know how to read that, you know that more than likely that price is going to move back down. But when you have an edge, such as order flow, and you can see into that more, that does help as far as knowing if the price is likely to drop after that. We did see that, and now the low that we hit today was around 72.96 on some exchanges. I think some exchanges was above 7,300, but it did bounce at this area. If we do zoom in, okay, we're going to notice there's a range that's forming right now, and that's between 74.88 and the low, of course, is around 72.96. If I zoom in even more, it's just going sideways. Well, typically what happens when price moves sideways after a large drop, typically continuation, right? Because we saw that again when that happened from the previous move, price went sideways around 3 months. Now, another thing that I noticed too was one of the indicators that we use with BlockRoots is the BlockRoots Alpha Trend. It is a private indicator that we use and members of BlockRoots only have. And it did print a short just right before the candle down. And so that was a clear indicator also too. I do like to use this on the 4 hour. It does give a lot of great signals on this. And as far as that, the short right before, of course, then it dropped. And also too, if you notice, I've used this indicator as well on the day. The great thing about this is that if you shorted, of course, it does move a little sideways in this range right here. But if you've been short since the time that it said so, definitely would be in quite a bit of profit right now. The long prior to this, of course, a short long there. But back in February, it would have been great to get in if we would have had this indicator out by then. But again, it gave the long signal. And moving all the way up to here, even if you took profit here at 10.6K, you'd definitely be in huge profit. So again, the BlockRoots Alpha Trend Indicator, if you're interested in that, you can certainly look into that by joining BlockRoots. If you don't know about BlockRoots, just go to blockroots.com. You can click started today. There's a lot of good information also too about our community as well as our education. We do have a community with a lot of support, videos, education, and you can just click get started, and you'll notice there as well that it is highly affordable. You can also pay per month, annually, and with crypto as well. But back to the markets, as far as Bitcoin, again, I am head short right here. And what does it mean to be head short? It just basically means what you can do is you don't always have to put, if you short Bitcoin or think that the price is going to move low, you can actually go and put a 1x short on your holdings of your Bitcoin in a margin exchange. And basically what that does is it acts as a stable coin. So if I were to put in at around 8K and I put in a 1x short, price drops from 8,000 to 7,300, basically the value in USD holds at $8,000. I don't lose any value when it comes to shorting Bitcoin on a 1x. And so that's the beauty of a 1x short, is that you can hedge. And if price drops by 2 or 3K, wherever you hedge at, that's the value of your coin as it continues to drop. And so, again, if you don't know how to short, I do recommend that you learn how to do that. I do recommend, a lot of people talk about how scary it is. A lot of people talk about how evil margin trading is in futures and derivatives, when really, if you want to stay ahead and you want to be successful outside of holding and stack Bitcoin, that's the best way to do it. And you don't have to do it all the time. But even in a strong downtrend, because again, I still think we're in a macro uptrend when it comes to that, right? If you were to look at the chart and look at the monthly and the yearly chart, you're just going to notice that Bitcoin is in a strong uptrend, right? And we should continue to uptrend over time. But again, we're going to have down markets in between. And so whenever you have that down market, if you know how to just go ahead and towards the top, put a short on your Bitcoin holdings, or at least some of it, that you're just going to maintain the value of what you have, and then you can just buy more at the bottom, and it's definitely a good strategy to use. So I'll go ahead and place the Bybit if you're interested in joining, the referral link there. Certainly it's no cost to you if you want to use that, and we do recommend it because it's one of the best margin trading available out there. We also have education videos on this as well if you want to take the time to use that. Like I said, I'll drop that in here in the video, and you can use that as well. And hopefully you can find success in that over time. We also have a lot of great stuff over on the BlockRoots website. So you're probably asking, So what's the next move? What is next for Bitcoin? And so I want to go ahead and talk about that. Really, going back to the charts here, it really depends on where buyers step in, okay? And so if I were to go and switch over to my other chart where I have everything labeled here, if I were to go ahead and show you that, right, it looks kind of ugly at first, but you're going to notice the gray boxes here. You've probably seen this before. These are areas of support and resistance areas, depending on volume profile, supply and demand, Fibonacci levels, basically levels where algos and bots and people tend to buy or sell a lot. Of course, blocks of daily support as well, weekly supports. And if I were to go ahead and show you, right, the big picture of things, here at the bottom here around 6,200 and above, there is definitely a lot of demand waiting there. So another thing that I want to show you, one thing that a lot of people tend to use is Fibonacci. And if I were to take the bottom of the previous yearly low and the top, the local top here, we have the 0.618 that lands right where the top of this daily support zone area is. And so, of course, notice that price didn't quite make it down there. Price could still certainly bounce here. This is certainly a popular place where bots and algos like to buy as far as that goes. So that is one area. Where do we think the buyers are going to step in at? Because it's really what it comes down to is supply and demand, okay? And so that's why I like to use volume profile. It broke through this supply and demand area right here. And again, the same area of supply and demand is right here. I do believe that we can have a nice strong balance in between around 6K all the way up to this area, 6,500. So I believe that we're going to continue to move down. And why do I believe we're not just going to go sideways here and move back up? That's because typically you don't go sideways for almost a month just to move down an extra 9 to 10% in a day, okay? What tends to happen is that just like here, we basically ranged, then we moved down 20-something%. We ranged again for a month, then we moved down another percentile. We'll probably range again for a few days, maybe only a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, and we'll probably move down. I think test this, but break through it and move back down again in the mid 6K area. Now, a lot of people are kind of worried, and that's why I also have this lower area around 5,000 marks as well too, because if price breaks here, certainly it's going to shoot through and likely hitting this area around 5,000 to 5,200. We also have a nice area of horizontal support and resistance, basically where people have bought and sold. That should act as support as well. I'm not going to even talk below that. If it breaks below that, it'll probably hit new lows. I don't even care. So what should get you excited? Well, a lot of people, should be excited because if you don't know about Backed, of course, Backed, which offers the monthly futures contracts, okay? So to get institutions in, basically had a record, and today so far, if you can look here on the Twitter, you can go to the Backed bot, and so there's 507 Bitcoin for today's volume, okay, which is really great. A lot of people are being bullish, and they're saying, asking, are institutions getting in? Are they buying? Is there a huge demand? And my answer to that is that it's not as big as demand as you want it to be. It's still not enough. 507 Bitcoin is a lot of Bitcoin in one day, but it's not that much when it comes to comparison of traditional markets and institutions. Why is that? If I were to take the local price right here, right now at 7,500, multiply that by 507 contracts, really you see it equaling up to $3.8 million. $3.8 million is a lot of Bitcoin, but that's a lot of money in general, but it's not a lot for institutions. And so it's going to take a lot more than 507 Bitcoin worth of demand here when it comes to the Backed volume for me to get excited, okay, or for me to get really bullish. And so the good news is that demand is going up, okay, at these lower prices. But the bad thing is that there is still a lot of demand below that. So I think that we can certainly still see another drop. And if I were to go ahead and again and get that range down, about 15% there would be at the bottom of the 6K range. We could go sideways for sure, but it is certainly an area where there will probably be a lot more buyers and sellers when it comes to Bitcoin market. So to wrap up the video, again, really what happened is that we saw the vol go low, and we knew that the Bollinger Bands were pinching as well. A move was happening as the range slowly after the last drop. We saw that the price drop down below over the last 3 days around 12%. And right now it is holding above 7,300, which is kind of a space in between a couple support areas. We should see price continue to move down and test this area as well. Maybe a potential bounce. If it does bounce, likely what's going to happen is price is going to bounce back up to this area around 7,800, and then likely it should continue on down, my guess, and then work its way down here to this area. And so that's basically what I'm looking at right now. I do believe that this is an area of a big demand. And again, price goes as low as goes as far down as it needs to until buyers step in. And buyers are going to step in until they feel like the price is right. And so if a lot of buyers think that the price is right around 6K to 7K, that's when we're going to see stabilization happen. That's when we're going to see a bounce happen. And that's when we're going to see the price hopefully start to uptrend after that. So you really don't need to panic unless you've been in altcoins. But the good news is that hopefully too, Bitcoin goes sideways in these areas. Hopefully it moves down a little bit more. We see altcoins drop a little more, stabilize, and then run up if Bitcoin decides to go sideways in this area. The good news too is that if you're new, or if you've wanted to, or if you're still somewhat of an amateur trying out with quote trading, you can short or head short on Bitcoin or other altcoins as well if you do believe that the market's going to continue down, and you can actually use that as a stable coin to maintain value. So I do recommend that you check that out. You do learn more about that. You've got plenty of time. You don't need to be in a rush. There's plenty of market cycles ahead. There's plenty of days ahead. If you missed a trade today, there's going to be a trade tomorrow. So just stay encouraged, guys. So with that said, that's been the market today. That's Bitcoin. You don't need to panic. I do believe that we see lower lows on the trend here after some sideways, but it's going to provide for some good buying opportunities over the next weeks to months. And I do foresee as we move into 2020 an uptrend to happen, hopefully after the halving there. But before then, I will certainly talk to you. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment, subscribe below. I look forward to drawing another Bitcoin winner this week, whoever leaves a comment, and we'll make sure to talk to you guys soon. All right, trade effectively, guys, and have a great day.